Assalamualaikum, saya Mustafa. We are from Group 10. We're representing about International Association of Deposit Insurers of Islamic Financial Services Board. So this is our group members. My name is Nurul Suryadi and my matrix number is UDE201098.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurul Nabila binti Syamsuddin and my matrix number is UDE210106. So I will present about introduction. A conventional deposit insurance system has been established in many ways in jurisdiction, but the business model of Islamic bank calls for certain adjustment in the way such a system is structured and operationalized. The business model of an Islamic bank differs from conventional banks on both sides of the balance sheet. Designing appropriate protection for depositors therefore requires careful consideration of Sharia issue. The main objective of the CPIDIS is to serve as a benchmark international framework to facilitate the development and implementation of an effective IDIS. Next, enable the existing IDIS to identify best practice gap in the current modalities and facilitate an independent third-party or self-assessment of the compliance of an IDIS with the CPIDIS. In general approach of the CPIDIS, they are compliant with objective of Sharia and the IDIS. The design features set out in the Iadi-Ifsb such as government membership, coverage and sources and uses of fund are generally consistent with the feature of an effective IDIS. The CPIDIS are intended as a framework supporting effective Islamic deposit insurance practices. National authorities are free to put in place supplementary measures that they deem necessary to achieve effective Islamic deposit insurance in their jurisdiction. Each CPIDIS is supported by assessment criteria. A comprehensive, credible and action-oriented assessment should focus on the IDIS and its relationship to the financial safety net functions that support it. Next, for the specific approach of the CPIDIS. In approaching the guideline in this document, the CPIDIS have undertaken certain approach that are related to the specificities of Islamic finance. Scope of Islamic bank. Islamic bank refers to any legal entity licensed by competent authority that undertake intermediary activities by accepting Sharia compliant deposits and or repayable funds. The public or investor and channeling the funds to provide financing activities and investment services. There are also Islamic banking windows, which are part of a conventional financing institution but provide deposit taking and financing investment services on principle that comply with the Sharia. However, the specific approach of CPIDIS is that the guidelines are applicable to all types of Islamic banks. The funding profile of Islamic bank also include a specific account term and investment account, with fund being placed by an investment account holder. This entails pooling of investable fund by the IAH with the bank for the purpose of undertaking investment carried out by the bank acting as an entrepreneur, which is mudarib, or agent, which is wakil. The regulatory and prudential treatment of investment account varies between jurisdictions, with some treating them as Islamic deposits, legal framework which do not recognize investment account, while others recognize them as investment account, a separate category from deposit. For Sharia governance, Islamic finance activities must be under the ongoing Sharia supervision by qualified experts who are well versed in the principle of Islamic finance and Sharia. Accordingly, Sharia governance refers to the set of institutional and organizational arrangement through which an Islamic bank ensures that there is effective independent oversight of Sharia compliance over each of the undertaken activities, structures and process.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Aini Syabin binti Tubarani and my matric number UDE201083. I will present about Section 2, definitions of key terms. First of all, kafalah. It's referred to a guarantor. Next, liquidation or receivership. refers to the winding down of the business affairs and operation of a failed bank through the orderly disposition of its asset after its license has been revoked and it has been placed in liquidation. Besides, liquidator or receiver, it refers to the legal entity that undertakes the winding down of the failed bank and the disposition of its assets. Next, moral hazard. It arises when parties have incentive to accept more risk because the costs that arise from the risk are borne, in whole or in party, by others. Besides, mudorobah refers to a profit-sharing partnership contract between the capital provider, Robul Mal, and an entrepreneur, Mudorib, whereby the capital provider would contribute capital to an enterprise or activity that is to be managed by the entrepreneur. Musyarakah refers to a partnership contract in which the parties agree to contribute capital to an enterprise, whether existing or new. In addition, resolution authority is defined as a public authority that, either alone or together with other authorities, is responsible for the resolution of financial institution is established in its jurisdiction. Sharia, it refers to the ruling deduced from legitimate Islamic source, the Quran, Sunnah, Jima', Qiyas, and other approved sources of the Sharia rules that are applicable within the Sharia compliance framework of the IDIS of a jurisdiction. Next, takaful. It refers to a mutual guarantee in return for the commitment to donate an amount in the form of specific contribution to the participant risk funds, whereby a group of participants agree among themselves to support one another jointly for the losses arising from specific risks. Last but not least, wakalah. It's referred to an agency contract where the customer appoint an institution as agency to carry out the business on his behalf. The contract can be with or without a fee. That's all from me.
Good day, everyone. My name is Nazifa Batrisha binti Nazi and my matric number is UDE201002. Today, I would like to talk about Iadi-Ifsb core principle for effective Islamic deposit insurance system, especially Section 3, which cover moral hazard, operating environment, and other consideration. The first key point to consider is Section 3.1, which stresses the importance of minimizing moral hazard in financial safety net. Deposit insurance is an essential tool to stabilize the financial system, but it can also create moral hazard where depositors are protected from bank risk and therefore lead to more risk-taking by banks. To address this issue, deposit insurance system must encourage good corporate governance and risk management practice while limiting coverage levels and differential contribution. The IDIS also need to intervene and resolve issue promptly to minimize risk. Next, Section 3.2 discusses the operating environment that is essential for effective deposit insurance system. The legal, social, and market framework must provide a solid basis for the IDIS to operate. A clear and comprehensive legal framework, effective social coordination, and conducive market framework for market discipline are crucial elements to ensure the effectiveness of the IDIS. Finally, the IDIS must consider other key considerations such as cross-border operation, treatment of investment account, and management of operation risk. Effective management of these elements can enhance the IDIS effectiveness and contribute to the sustainability of the financial system. In conclusion, the IADI-IFSB Core Principles for Effective Islamic Deposit Insurance System Section 3 highlight essential aspects that need consideration for deposit insurance system to operate effectively. By minimizing moral hazard, creating an effective operating environment, and addressing other key considerations, deposit insurance system can help stabilize the financial system. Thank you. That's all from me. I will pass the presentation to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum, Sri Mustafa. I will explain about Section 4, Core Principles and Compliance Assessment for International Association of Deposit Insurers. I will explain CPDs 1 until CPDs 6. For CPDs 1, Public Policy Objective. The principal public policy objective for Islamic deposit insurance system are to safeguard depositors and enhance financial stability. These goals should be clearly stated and made available to the public. The Islamic deposit insurance system's structure should be in line with Sharia regulations and reflect the system goals in terms of public policy. For essential criteria, the public policy objective of the Islamic deposit insurance system are clearly and formally specified and made public. For example, through legislation or documents supporting the legislation. For CPDs 2, Mandate and Powers. The mandate and powers of the deposit insurer should support the public policy objective and be clearly defined and formally specified in legislation. For essential criteria, the mandate and powers of the deposit insurer are formally and clearly specified in legislation and are consistent with stated public policy objective. Number 2, the mandate clarifies the roles and responsibilities of the deposit insurer and is aligned with the mandates of other safety net participants. 3, the powers of the deposit insurer support its mandate and enable the deposit insurer to fulfill its role and responsibilities. For CPDs 3, for governance. The deposit insurer should be operationally independent, well-governed, transparent, accountable, and insulated from internal interference. For essential criteria, number 1, the deposit insurer is operationally independent. It is able to use its power without interference from internal parties to fulfill its mandate. There is no government, central bank, supervisory, or industry interference that compromises the operational independence of the deposit insurer. CPDs 4, relationships with other safety net participants. There should be a clear and comprehensive framework in place for the close coordination of actions and ongoing information sharing between the deposit insurer and other financial safety net members in order to safeguard depositors and contribute to financial stability. For essential criteria, rules regarding confidentiality of information apply to all safety net participants and the exchange of information among them. Confidentiality of information is protected by law or through agreements so as not to prevent information sharing within the safety net. For CPDs 5, cross-border issues. Formal information sharing and coordination procedures should exist among deposit insurers in relevant jurisdiction where there is material presence of foreign Islamic banks. Essential criteria. First, where there is material presence of foreign Islamic banks, for example, subsidiaries of commercial banks or branches. Formal information sharing and coordination arrangements are in place among relevant deposit insurers or relevant safety net participants, subject to confidentiality provisions. For CPD 6, deposit insurers' role in contingency planning and crisis management. So, the deposit insurer should have in place effective contingency planning and crisis management policies and procedures to ensure that it is able to effectively respond to the risk of an actual Islamic bank failures and other events. For essential criteria, the deposit insurer develops and regularly tests its own contingency planning and crisis management plans. So that's all for me. I will pass to the next presenter.
My name is Sharifah Nanisa bin Saizah. My matrix number is UDE2010. So I'm gonna explain about the other CPI-DIS, which is membership. And membership in an Islamic deposit insurance system should be compulsory for all Islamic banks. So for the essential criteria, Islamic banks must meet requirements to join deposit insurance system. A membership in Islamic deposit insurance system is clearly defined and transparent. Deposit insurer must be informed of license application, and depositors are notified when membership is cancelled, and arrangements must be in place to cover existing deposit up to a deadline. The next one is coverage. Policy makers should define coverage, limit it, and be consistent with Islamic deposit insurance objectives. So for the essential criteria, insurers, deposits, and depositors must be clearly defined in law or regulation. The coverage status of investment accounts should clearly define based on public policy objectives, and the level and scope of coverage should be limited and credible to minimize the risk of runs on Islamic banks and promote market discipline. And co-insurance should not be incorporated. The next one is sources and uses of funds. Islamic banks and IAH should pay for deposit insurance. So for the sources of funds, the contribution from member institutions are determined based on risk profiles and deposit. An Islamic deposit insurance system builds reserve to cover losses from bank failures. So for the users of funds, Islamic deposit insurance system builds reserves to cover losses from bank failures. Islamic deposit insurance system can use funds to invest in Sharia compliant instruments. So for the last one is public awareness, which is inform about Islamic deposit insurance system to protect depositors, and the essential criteria is to establish effective communication strategy to promote Islamic deposit insurance system, and the communication strategy should be comprehensive, integrated, and targeted to stakeholders. They need to provide clear and concise information about Islamic deposit insurance system, and the communication strategy should promote responsible financial behavior, and they can collaborate with other authorities to promote public awareness and assess and adjust communication strategy to address new challenges. So that's all for me. I'm going to pass to the next person.
Hi sir, good day. So my name is Divya Anaprapamohan and my matric number is UDE2010. So now I'm going to present about CPDs 11 to 17. CPDs 11 is legal protection. Legal protection is specified in legislation and provided to the deposit insurer, its current and former directors, officers and employees, and any individual, including where applicable Sharia advisors and Sharia board members, currently or previously retained or engaged by the deposit insurer for decision made an action or omission taken in good faith in the normal course of their duties. Legal protection precludes damages or other awards against such individuals and covers costs including funding defense costs as incurred, which is and not just reimbursement after a successful defense. So now move to CPDs 12, which is dealing with parties at fault in an Islamic failure. The conduct of parties responsible for or contributing to the failure of an Islamic bank, examples officers, directors, managers and owners, as well as conduct of related parties and professional service providers, which is auditors, accountants, lawyers and asset appraisers, is subject to investigation. The investigation of conducts of such as parties may be carried out by one or more of the following: the deposit insurer, supervisor or regulatory authority, criminal or investigative authority, or an other professional or disciplinary body as applicable. Moreover, CPD is 13. Early detection and timely intervention. The framework includes a set of clearly defined qualitative and quantitative criteria that are used to trigger timely intervention or corrective action. The criteria are clearly defined in law, regulation or agreements. Another one is include safety and soundness indicators such as Islamic bank's capital, assets quality, management, earnings, liquidity, sensitivity to market risk, and also are reviewed periodically, and the procedure for this review is formalized. Now, let's move to CPDs 14. The deposit insurer has the operational independence and sufficient resources to exercise its resolution powers, consistent and its mandate. The resolution regime ensures that all Islamic banks are resolvable through a broad range of powers and options. These options are consistent with the Sharia framework as applied in the jurisdiction. Actually, this CPD 14 is failure resolution. So let's move to next slide, which is contains CPDs 15, 16, and 17. For CPD 15, reimbursing depositors, the deposit insurer is able to reimburse most protected depositors within 7 working days. If the deposit insurer cannot currently meet this target, the deposit insurer has credible plan in place to do so. To be credible, the reimbursement plan has a clear time frame for implementation, for example, within 2 years. It's supported by relevant laws, regulations, systems, and process, for an example, intervention and resolution manuals, and also has clear measurable deliverables. As for the CPD 16, it's recoveries. Okay, the deposit insurance role in recovery process is clearly defined in law. The deposit insurer or the Islamic Deposit Insurance Fund is clearly recognized as a creditor of a failed Islamic bank by subrogation. The deposit insurer or Islamic Deposit Insurance Fund has at least the same creditor rights or status as a depositor in the treatment in law of the estate of the failed Islamic bank. Last but not least, CPD 17, Sharia governance. The Islamic deposit insurance system has an adequate Sharia governance system to ensure its design, procedures, and operation are in compliance with Sharia principles, along with ongoing monitoring mechanism to ensure the system's continued compliance. The Sharia governance, example in form of Sharia board, has a member with appropriate knowledge, skills, competence, and expertise, acts in independent and transparent manner, and any potential conflicts of interest are appropriately managed, is adequately resourced and serviced to carry out its duties diligently, and also abides by codes of ethics and confidentiality to ensure that internal information obtained in the course of duties is kept confidential. So that's all from me. Thank you.
And next one, specificities of IDIS. Firstly, the uniqueness of Islamic banking. Islamic and conventional banks share a common financial intermediary role. What differentiates them is the requirement for the former to comply with Sharia principle. Sharia principle include riba, gharar, speculation, and gambling, which is reflected in their institutional setup, the product and services they are offered, and the different type of relationship between the banks and their customer. Conventional banks, on the other hand, structure their assets and liability mainly on a contract based on interest. On the asset side, financing contract include mudharabah, ijara, istisna, and salam. For the partnership arrangements, the Islamic banks provide financing through a joint partnership with customer for a specific economic activity based on a pre-specified profit and loss sharing arrangement. The contract include mudharabah and musyarakah. Another form of transaction is a fee-based arrangement which include wakalah and services fee. Next, Sharia requirements and specificities for IDIS design. Arrangement for deposit insurance. Sharia governments, Islamic banking windows, investment accounts, funding the protection of IAHS, the management and usage of an Islamic deposit insurance funds, separation of CDIS and IDIS office, the usage of the term contribution, restoration of failed Islamic banks. That's all. Annex 2. Key consideration for investment account under an IDIS. The deposit insurer may protect investment accounts under an IDIS if such protection contribute the financial stability and if it is consistent with IDIS public policy objective. Apart from the objective of contributing to financial stability, the deposit insurer may set additional objective for the protection of investment accounts provided that they do not conflict with overall financial stability objective. The deposit insurer exclude restricted investment accounts from IDIS coverage if it is not detrimental to financial stability and consumer protection. And for all principal and essential criteria set out in the CPIDIS that concern the protection of deposit under an IDIS are also applicable to the protection of investment accounts. That's all. Annex 3. Assessment of compliance with the CPIDIS. Firstly, compliance assessment. The primary objective of an assessment should be to evaluate compliance with the CPIDIS after taking into account the structural, legal, and institutional features of its national deposit insurance system. The assessment should review the function inherent in providing an effective of IDIS as opposed to an assessment of just the deposit insurer. In so doing, the assessment will identify the strength of the IDIS and the nature and extent of any weaknesses. Importantly, the assessment is a means to an end, not an objective in itself. Next, assessment by external parties follow a 5-grade scale as follows. Firstly, compliance. The essential criteria are met without any significant deficiencies. Largely compliant. Only minor shortcomings are observed and the authorities are able to achieve full compliance within a prescribed time frame. Besides, materially non-compliant. Several shortcomings which cannot be recited easily. In addition, non-compliant. Non-substantive implementation of the CPIDIS. Last but not least, not applicable, which means not considered given the structural, legal, institution features of the deposit insurance system. That's all. Thank you. For the conclusion, the IFSB is an international standard setting organization which was officially inaugurated on 3rd November 2002 and started operation on 10 March 2003. The organization promotes and enhances the soundness and stability of the Islamic financial services industry by issuing global prudential standard and guiding principles for the industry, broadly defined to include the banking, capital market, and insurance sectors. The standards prepared by the IFSB follow a Leg Dui process as outlined in its guidelines and procedures for the preparation of standards or guidelines, which include the issuance of exposure draft and holding of workshop and where necessary public hearings, as well as conducting research and coordinating initiatives on industry-related issues. The IFSB organized roundtable, seminar, and conference for regulatory and industry stakeholders. To this end, the IFSB worked closely with relevant international, regional, and national organization, research or educational institution, and market players. Next, the International Association of Deposit Insurers, IADI, is the global standard setting body for deposit insurance system. IADI was performed in May 2002 to enhance the effectiveness of deposit insurance system by promoting guidance and international cooperation. IADI conduct research and procedures guidance for the benefit of those jurisdictions seeking to establish or improve a deposit insurance system. IADI standards outlined in its core principle for effective deposit insurance system are part of the Financial Stability Board's key standard for sound financial system and are used in the Financial Sector Assessment Program FSAP reviews conducted by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Members also share their knowledge and activities through participation in international conferences and other forums. IADI currently represents 85 deposit insurers. Lastly, IADI is a non-profit organization constitution under the Swiss law and is domiciled at the Bank for International Settlement in Basel, Switzerland. That's all from us. Thank you.